Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl, Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
You're one breakthrough away from your next six-figure year. Maybe it's a better offer, a sharper sales process, or finally cracking client acquisition. Welcome, everybody, to Business Coaching Secrets, where every single week we hand you the strategies, frameworks, and real-world plays that are working right now for coaches just like you. I'm your host, the Road Dog, with none other than the legendary Karl Bryan himself. We all know Karl's all about helping people scale, which is interesting because my scale has gone up 5 pounds already this year. Here's hoping he can help with both. Chutes, welcome to the show.
Chutes, what's going on, bud? Speaking of jam, buddy, I jammed my back at the gym. Oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain. So much pain.
Did you finally make it out of the ladies section of the gym now, or what happened? What's going on, Chutes? Did you? It's like,
you want to know the truth? You want to know the truth? I've got this. I decided I was going to start working my glutes, right? Oh, another word, your backside, right? Anyway, so I truthfully, I was in the gals area, and I'm pushing this, that, the other. Oh my gosh, I overdid it. I got a little excited. So anyways,
calling Michael Hunt. I hope you're listening to this podcast. Karl just admitted to being in the female section of the gym, working on his glutes and throughout his back. Seriously, this is material for the next 18 months. I appreciate your input to today's episode. That is amazing.
Oh my God. Is this being recorded? Hey, automatic. We start again.
You know what? Maybe you can wear those glorious hot pants that I saw a picture of on Facebook as well while you're doing your roller hockey. Those were electric, dude.
Oh, buddy. Don't pretend it's not amazing. Oh, my back. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So, lady section.
There you go.
Boom, got me. It was impressive, though. It was impressive.
Unlike you working on your glutes. Hey, listen. How do I segue into the first question from that? Okay. So as we know, there's a lot of business coaches out there that are struggling, but there's also some out there that are absolutely crushing. And I just want to know, like, obviously you deal with hundreds upon hundreds, probably, well over 1,000 inside of focus.com coaches. And I'm just wondering, like, obviously, you know, as Tony Robbins always says, success leaves clues. What do you see? Like, what do you see the primary differences between the guys that are just, they can't seem to make a go, they're struggling, they're grinding, versus the guys that are just out there crushing and dominating?
Okay. Well, what I would say as a frame is that introduce me to a group of dentists and you'll find the same. And then introduce me to a bunch of doctors and you'll find the same. And then you introduce me to some landscaping companies and you're going to find the same. So this is not unique to business coaching in any way, shape, or form, all psychology. Okay. So struggling versus killing it. In a word, it's going to be action for sure. And again, as you said, I've trained thousands of business coaches over 22-year career. I would say, look, struggling, they talk about how they can promote themselves and get more, visibility, right? How I can generate more leads would be it. And then those killing it, crushing it as a business coach, you know, they're asking how and talk about how they can prepare, how they can learn, where they can find information, how they can install the operating system at a higher level, quicker, easier, in a more fluid way. How can they create like a more awesome deliverable, stack services? Elon Musk was here. Elon Musk is Elon Musk. Stacking was basically a superpower of his. And basically they're just asking about how they can become more valuable to their audience, their prospects, their clients, etc. I just say magic is not in the plan. The magic is in the planning, right? That's Dwight Eisenhower 101. Everyone, and then again, you follow that up with everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, right? That's what Mike Tyson would say. So if you get punched in the face by Mike Tyson, you got to go back to your training, not your plan that you were going to do X, Y, and Z, right? That's what Dwight Eisenhower's talking about there. Like when I promote leads, I get like 10x the opt-ins. When we promote like a more strategic frame of, that become the best business coach you can be, we get far less, but the leads are of a higher quality. Like our 4-day training and where we teach you how to read financial statements and find your high-end coaching fees before starting with your high-end client. Less people take that up, but it tends to be a higher quality. So what I'm really trying to say, high-end buyers buy on identity, and then the lower end folks will buy off utility and desire. You want to lean into identity while you're selling, while you're speaking to prospects, speaking to your clients, help them become the best business owner they can be. It might sound a little bit ratty-tat, but absolute. Lean into identity. That's the difference, Chutes. Lead generation versus becoming the most unbelievable deliverable possible. There you go. And that would be the same for the landscapers, the roofers, the butchers, the bakers, the candlestick makers, by the way. But that's my answer.
There you go. There you go. One thing you've always said to me is be a lot more focused on the what you're delivering in terms of what's the value you're delivering rather than how much money you're looking to make. And
yeah, most people, they're one letter away from greatness. They concentrate on what they earn, and they really got to be concentrating on what they learn. You just put an L in front. So 100%.
There you go, folks. Well, we could wrap up today's TED Talk right there. We that could be it right there, folks. But anyways, hey, listen, we had somebody write in, and they were asking, because you had said once 73% of business owners who exit their business look back with regret, and they're hoping that you could expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. Yes, I can. I think that will surprise most people to the point where they would even doubt it, is what I have seen. Like we just launched exit acceleration software. Always remember the higher level frame is not to exit. It's build a business you could sell tomorrow but don't want to. Exit sounds amazing until it doesn't. There's so many reasons here why. But first, okay, so they sell their company for $5 million. I get a room of 100 people and I say, who would like to sell their company to me for $5 million? Guess how many hands go up? And it rhymes with all, right? And then assume that they get it all, the entire 5 million, which I'm going to dive deeper into that in a second. But they got to pay tax, they got to pay off some debt, they got a business broker, a mergers and acquisition guy or gal, maybe they got to do an investment banker, and they're going to have to spend at least like 10% of the 5 million, 500 grand, in order to do that. So what happens on the example is they end up with a lot closer to 2.75 million cash when all is kind of said and done, right? So what happens when 2.75 million hits the bank account? The vultures show up as soon as the bank hits the bank account, right? And the bad stock deal, the bad investment, the bad real estate deal. We've got a client who got robbed of $6 million cash in crypto. Ouchie, ouchie, ouchie. So just think the guy who goes from being an expert in roofing, sells his company, and then he becomes the real estate investor. You could just imagine how the brand new real estate investor from the roofing industry, those first few deals go. And by the way, sometimes I'm sure they go fabulously, but I think you could imagine on average, maybe not quite so exciting. And, there's some moving parts when you go to do that. So translation, the money gets spent at 10x the speed they assume. So that would be like one reason. But probably the higher level frame is that it's very rare to get a full cash deal when you sell a business. So the 5 million is normally not a cash sale. It's like an earnout of some description. So let's assume it's $1 million. So you sell it for 5 million, the paperwork signed, they get $1 million up front, and then the 4 million is owed over, a period. Well, they end up getting maybe half of the money. And then what happens? The deal goes south with very little recourse. And why? Because the paperwork wasn't tight, right? And then the business is a shell of itself when they need to take back over. And what do? They regret selling, right? Like business brokers is the wild, wild west with no fiduciary responsibility, right? It's like whereas an investment banker makes a mess, they have fiduciary responsibility, and you could have some recourse there, right? The business broker does not. And by the yeah. So just take that as a frame. But what do people do? They go with the business broker. Why? Because he or she is half the price, right? Well, good idea. Quite possibly not. And think delays, defaults, lawsuits, judgments, economic adjustments, economic downturn, right? Things, when things can go wrong, they will go wrong. So to sum it up, there's just lots of dynamics at play. And in the end, you sell for 5 million, you end up getting 1 million, you end up with a shell of a company versus what they had and what they sold. They would have been better off to do what? Just to keep going. Whereas what are they doing now? They're fighting to get their company back. And you're going to sell, you need a highly qualified transactional attorney and a tax expert to help create the sale, the paperwork, the contracts, etc. And by the way, if that sounds expensive, you would be correct. And if it's not at least, so you're going to sell, I think if it's not at least half cash up front, I'm going to say that it's a deal that might struggle, you know, it struggle to make it work. And by the way, those on Facebook, because I know I can kind of picture people just going to Facebook, but this guy exited and he killed it. And now he's, sipping margaritas on the beach. Generally speaking, those that are loudest about it, you could probably assume that it's probably not going to end up working out quite the way that they planned, and they're going to have to come back from their Hawaii retreat and get back to work. And maybe they won't. And by the way, how do you create a business you could sell tomorrow but don't want to? You hire the number 2 guy from the number 1 competitor. You elevate your top employee or your best client and then make them an equity partner, right? Like to sell a company, number 1 employee, number 1 competitor, number 1 client is generally where a strong deal can be made. The guy off biz buy sell, quite possibly not. And that's the usual frame. That's where they normally find people. Like when I hire, so think recruitment, like when I hire a staff member, I headhunt them versus have them apply, right? So actually I spoke to, when I screwed my back up, by the way, he was my first call afterwards because we had something set up. And Bill Roberts spoke to him. He didn't apply, right? I approached him. I recruited him. Why? Because he's a rock star, right? And the staff member that we took on before that, Zoe Fairfax, same thing. I recruited her because she's awesome and could really help our clients get to clients. That's the job description, right? It's like the Pittsburgh Steelers, they don't have players apply. They recruit, right? College football is the same. They go to high schools and they recruit. So in selling a company, think recruitment is a far better strategy than having people apply as a general frame. Headhunt your staff member, your best client, or your number 1 competitor to take over what you've got when exiting. And I would dare say you have a significantly better chance of having a fantastic ending versus something that's less than fantastic. And by the way, help your client build a business they could sell tomorrow that don't want to. Have them recruit staff versus putting the ad on Indeed. It's like every good finance book, there's a story of a guy who had a full-time job and died donating millions to charity or passing millions on to his kids and his family. And in the same book, side by side, there's a billionaire, or certainly close to somebody with gobs and gobs and gobs of money who went all in on another, and I want you to capitalize, bold, and italicize, another project, and ended up going bankrupt or going to zero, right? It's like a king with limits to his desires can rule a lifetime. A king with no limits to his desires often ends up, killed, going to zero, lighting things on fire. And like another 2008, and like you're going to sell the company. Look, I remember buying a very expensive piece of real estate, and it was like the week before 2008, right? So there's another 2008, there's another COVID, there's another 9/11, and it's coming, and you need to be prepared the whole time, right? So magic is not in the plan, the magic is in the planning. So businesses sell unexpected things happen, the COVID 2008, and they don't end up getting their dough. So anyway, so there's other dynamics, but Chutes, that's what I would say. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's funny because I actually have an off the cuff question here for you because I have a client who is a painting contractor and he's having a tough time trying to find painters. And
Yeah.
like when you say recruit, like where how would you go about something like that? Because again, it's not a higher end sort of thing. It's you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
um
Oh yeah.
what any advice for a
Higher
guy?
end area, higher end what? Higher end what? What do you
No, but
mean?
I mean it's like you're looking for just quality guys that actually care and want to do quality painting and but it's not like a high-end position within the company. Like this is just guys going out and doing interior exterior painting.
Yeah. So one of the things you can do, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's hard work, let me tell you. He needs to be convincing. Like what's the vision for his company? Right. And if he doesn't have whenever I hire somebody, how do I start the conversation? I've started it 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And, recent hires, I start with the vision for the company, right? Like, here's where we're going. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta be, it's the same way. If I'm going to recruit you to come to Stanford versus the other school, how do they do it? They start talking about, you know what I mean? They don't talk about you're going to be the wide receiver. They start talking about the vision and how many people they put into the NFL and the coaches and the training and the training room and, all the, you know what I mean? That's where you're going to be starting. But painting, look, it's a tough one, right? But what I would say is often bringing people from other markets. So again, especially if he lives like, imagine like, we're in Kelowna here. There's a lot of people in Calgary, in Edmonton, in Vancouver, you know what I mean? In all parts of the country that would love to live in Kelowna. Well, one of the things you do is you look outside your area. But yeah, there's a couple frames, but you know what it is, Shoots? It's hard work.
Yeah,
Same,
no, I like
it's like a sale.
that vision piece, and that's the thing that I like. But hey, listen, I want to shift gears a little bit because, and again, I don't know if anyone really picked up on this, but last week when you said we're talking about Grant Cardone, you said he responded his deposition with fight, right? Not pause, not panic, not flight. And you said this is why he's a billionaire because most people would respond with that, flight and panic and pause. So it was his nervous system responded, not his brain. And we got just a lot of feedback on that. So I'm just wondering if you can guide someone who's kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better way of putting it, kind of jammed up in their nervous system. So like how would you help that person?
Okay. Pressure Shoots. Somebody with a jammed up nervous system. That's who we're helping.
Listen,
Um,
this is the Buddha Zen master I'm asking here. So obviously I've come to the right place.
yeah. Um, well, I can't tell you this, like neuroscience is where we got to go here. I've studied that at a decent level. I just tell you that as a child, you have two fears initially. As a baby, you got the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. As an adult, you've got two primary fears. One is that I'm not enough, and the other one is that love will be taken away. And again, don't take those like verbatim, like take them as framing. Like when you call somebody and they tell you to buzz off, that's kind of like, that's making you feel like you're not enough. And if you already feel that way, it's reinforcing it, feels real bad, right? So like if you want to protect a kid from social media, you build up their self-esteem, right? That's the higher level frame. So neuroscience, look, if you feel anxious or you end up in a constant stress loop, and those some will not understand what I'm saying, and others are going to know exactly what I'm saying. The difference is that some live in a stress loop and then some do not. Um, so if you get there, don't ask, how do I get rid of this? Ask, why am I feeling this way? Right. So it's Elon Musk 101. You got to go to root cause. Like treat anxiety and overwhelmed as data as opposed to a defect, is what I'd say. Right. Remember, three things you're never going to escape: pain, uncertainty, constant work. That is the billionaire. That's the guy who's retired. That is the 23-year-old trying to find their way. That's the business coach struggling, and that is the business coach crushing it. You're never getting away from pain, uncertainty, and constant work, right? That, by the way, Phil Stutz, who's a bit of a legend, made a movie about him, etc. Anyways, another thing you got to do, look, you got to manage your environment. Change in physical environment is 100% hack to leap forward in business. A bad example, but a good example is you always dream bigger on a holiday, right? People don't go on holidays for 3 years and then wonder why they're struggling. That's part of it. But more to the point, moving from one city, one state, one country is going to be like, I don't know, 5x more powerful, I would dare say. And not everybody can do it, and that's fine. But you got to understand that these types of things can make a big difference. It's a hack all day long. More to the point, maybe if you're disorganized and live in a volatile, urgent, anxious environment, and you find yourself in, what are we going to call it, pause mode, right? Think about it. That's actually the right response, right? That's not a defect. So you don't have a brain that's letting you down. You have a nervous system navigating a toxic environment, right? Well, again, you got to go to the environment. You don't need to go to, hey, I'm pausing here. It's like, again, you got to go to root cause. Like humans need attachment more than any other creature on planet Earth. Like animals are with their parents for like weeks, months, maybe a year, and then they're off on their lonesome. We're attached to our parents until we're like 18. And then nowadays, it's probably a little closer to 25, by the way. It's kind of wild if you think about it, right? Like as a frame. So when you feel connected, you feel safe. The root of anxiety is what? It's feeling unsafe. So if you feel anxious, like anxiety is something that you struggle with, it's a feeling of not feeling safe, right? So your nervous system manages itself through connection. And by the way, that is connection to yourself. And by the way, that is a big part of why depression exists. Depression is actually you connecting to yourself, right? Anyway, so, but more of maybe connection to people that feel safe, like your family, like your close friends, right? You got to connect to something bigger than you, like a purpose. When you're in your head, you're behind enemy lines. I think Mel Robbins originally said that. I think it's pure gold. But you're in your head, you're not in a good place, right? Think, what do they do to the most hardened criminal? And they want to punish them. They put them in solitary confinement, and it is brutal, brutal, brutal. It'd be brutal for you. It'd be brutal for me, and it's definitely brutal for them. So they're just in their head the entire time. And again, when you're in your head, acting wildly independent, your nervous system reads what? Like, let's just put a bit like a danger ahead sign pops up, right? So you're acting like I just want to do it on my own. If you want something done right, you do it yourself. If you're wildly independent, your nervous system is saying danger, danger, danger. And what does that do? If you see danger, 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 you go into survival mode, right? You go inward as opposed to outward. I'll let you decide if inward is better than outward. And the answer is definitely not, right? So you got a translation, you need to build and maintain meaningful relationships. If you feel like your nervous system is something you need to manage, like you want to do the old go to fight instead of go to flight. You want to go to fight instead of go to panic or pause. Meaningful relationships will help you do that. And by the way, your client's phone is the enemy of this dynamic big time. At the end of the day, you need connection. It's so important. When somebody gets depressed, what do? Do they go and phone everybody? No, they do the exact opposite. They go inward. You can't get a hold of them. They don't respond to text messages, etc. And then trauma is not managed in between your ears. It's not managed in your mind. It's managed in your nervous system. So if it's not dealt with, it's like this never-ending feedback loop that never stops, right? And then how does it show up? It shows up as procrastination. It shows up as perfectionism. It shows up as insomnia, gut issues. If you have depression, you need to go. I would encourage you to go. And I think the experts will say the same. You got to go sort out your gut issues because there's a really good chance your gut has got some challenges. So somebody who's really good at treating depression will almost always help you with gut issues. And by the way, back pain, maybe that's what I got going on, Chutes. Brain fog, pause mode. Anyway, so talking to a therapist is going to help here, but the solution is for you to feel safe. right? Super important. And by the way, you are, right? So I would sum up, healing your nervous system isn't about becoming someone new. It's becoming you again, right? So I did some really high level personal development, a thing called the Hoffman Institute, the Hoffman process, something like that. It was like 7 days without your phone, locked in a community, no outside, anything. Um, super, super powerful. And they had you, one of the biggest things we did, we carried around a little baby, right? You gave it like the nickname that you had when you were a child. And it's basically carrying around, your inner child. You got to get connected with that inner child. It's not about becoming someone new. It's just unleashing, it's the coal and the diamond thing. You just got to break everything away that's not you. And it's just like reconnection with yourself. Remember, you are enough. They won't take love away from you. You got to give them permission to do that. Um, and if they do, by the way, guess what? You're going to be fine. Why? Because you were safe, right? And remember, this isn't a mind thing. This isn't something to sort out in between your ears. This is a body. This is a nervous system thing. Very important. Like when you jump in a cold plunge, again, I've been in and out of cold plunges, countless times. What do I say to myself before I jump in a cold plunge? That I am stronger than the cold water, right? Sounds kind of stupid, but basically what I'm doing is I'm taking control, like I'm the boss. The water is not. As I say, it sounds pretty stupid, but it is. It's just like taking control, right? And by the way, if this resonates, I want to recommend a book, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. I've written about that and kind of summarized it in emails that I've sent out. Don't let the devil control you, right? You're enough. You're loved. You're safe. Everything's going to be A-OK. This too shall pass. Anyway, so yeah, sort out your nervous system, Chutes. It's not a brain thing. It's a nervous system thing. And I think that might give somebody some tips, but I think it's good to like be, it's higher level frame to be going like that question. You know what I mean? It's a higher level frame. It's like, hang on a second. I think I got a jammed up nervous system. Well, if you do, go sort it out and don't try to do it in between your ears. You'll be very disappointed. Anyway, Chutes, that's my answer, bud. What do you think?
So what do I think? I think your whole mindset of I am stronger than this cold plunge. Have you considered taking that to the gym? Have you considered that when you're doing your glute
I did.
exercises that perhaps your
Right when
glutes are stronger?
that's exactly what happened, Chutes. But I'm like, I'm going to impress these people. Oh, Chutes. Oh, I'm so pissed at myself. Oh my gosh.
All
So
right.
pissed.
Little word association. I like to pick some words that have many, many, many different meanings and interpretations to pretty. It's one of those you ask 100 people, you'll probably get 103 different definitions. But I got one here. I'm going to throw at you, and I want to hear what you
Yeah.
have to say about the word retirement.
Oh, Chutes. Retirement. The the book is called Think and Grow Rich. Most people have not thought through this very well, right? Like you introduce me to the average person, be a business coach, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, corporate guy, corporate gal for 20 years. They're going to say, I say, what do you want retirement to look like? And then they're going to say, oh, I picture myself in Hawaii sipping a margarita on the beach. And I'm like, okay. So that's Wednesday. Okay, he said, you're going to be so sunburned by Friday, you're going to need a week inside with aloe vera cream all over your body to heal yourself. And by the way, if you got that olive skin, you're probably going to end up an alcoholic. Um, or you start golfing every day, and the next thing you know, guess what? You're going to be sick to death of golf. That's what's going to happen. Not to mention all your friends are working, so you struggle to find a partner to play with. Only so much golf you can play, or what happens? You all of a sudden retire and you spend all your time at home. What happens? The wife and the husband and the wife spend so much time together. What happens? They get absolutely sick of each other, and then they end up separated. They end up divorced, and then their life really falls apart when they thought it was going to be amazing because all of a sudden they had no responsibilities. Right? I can tell you, women want to be with a man who's working towards his purpose, right? And man needs a purpose to get up in the morning, and varies for some. Golf will do that, but that would be the minority from my understanding. Remember, the magic is in the journey, not in the destination. Napoleon Hill, his highest level message, and again, I believe he's a pretty, he's got some really good content out there, in my opinion. And some people love him, some people hate him, and I'm okay with that. But I think he's got some good stuff. His biggest message is does he word it this way? Definitiveness of purpose. Um, his message is not retire and play golf all day or sip margaritas in Hawaii. Maybe a better example, Jim Carrey's got a quote. And it's like, so I wish everybody could become, rich and famous and accomplish everything they ever dreamt of. And why? Because they can then see that it's all, it's not all that it's cracked up to be, that it's not necessarily the answer. And I would just invite you to go see, like a Justin Bieber, a Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, a Robin Williams, a Whitney Houston. It's how wonderful is it? Or Michael Jordan should probably be included in there. If you watched his documentary, the guy's like holed up smoking a cigar in his hotel room because every time he leaves, he gets mauled, and he just wants some peace. Anyway, so retirement, we've got multi-million-dollar, business folks all over our community. Lots of my long-term clients fit that category, and they retired, they get bored poopless. So what do? They come into our world and have a great time and join the community, and they just love to help people, right? Yeah, they get paid to help the business owners. But they're having a good time. Like retirement goal, I think that makes sense as a frame. And remember, it's not my job to tell you what you want. I tell you where to look, not what to see. And I say this all the time, and it gets unbelievable amount of feedback, but semi-retired for the rest of your life. And my question for you, does that sound appealing? And if it does, then set that up. And again, a limit to your desires, right? A king with a limit to his desires can rule a lifetime. Like 5 clients at $3,000, you can use your own math, right? But 5 clients at $3,000 a month, what's that? 15 grand a month. And it's enough to keep you busy, but not so little that you blow your life up. And believe me, people retire and blow up their life. They end up separated, they end up divorced, they end up bored silly, they end up drinking too much, smoking too much, etc. Like it happens, right? Like one of our clients, Hugh Taffel, he's been a client for, I'm going to say 12 years, been, well over a decade for sure. Like he lives in Panama, he works, he roughly 15 hours a week. And he's got a wonderful wife, Jan, who we know really well. And, he's semi-retired for the rest of his life. Jason Economides, like a brother, been a client for, I'm going to say 14 years, loves his Porsche, loves his cars. He's a bit of a big deal in the old Russell Brunson world. Super smart guy, been a client for forever, loving life. And he wouldn't turn it off for anything, right? Why? He's having fun. So we get guys like that all over the community. I mentioned Porsche. I got to mention Paul Winseman. He loves his Porsche. I'm a bit of a, car buff too. So we talk about, cars, etc. But he loves his Porsche. Loves his Porsche. He just got an electric one, and he's absolutely loving it. Dale Gibbons lives on a huge acreage. He goes fishing on his own property. Right, pretty cool. Kent Cuby. He did a deal with the guy who owns the Angels. The baseball team. Craig Taggart, venture capital guy, manages a family office, and again, just loves everything about the software and what we do. Darren Gunst, private equity guy, bit of a, just a rock star of a guy, wildly intelligent, wildly connected. Anyways, they're doing what they're doing what they're passionate about. Again, I think they would say they're semi-retired for the rest of their life, having a great old time. So I would just say yeah, retirement Chutes, think it through, and there's a pretty good chance that, what you want is not actually what you want. So anyways, that's my answer, Chutes. I don't know. What do you think? Anything, Dad?
You made a comment there of just loving what they do, wouldn't give it up for anything. So I got to ask you, what do you say to someone that gives the business advice of, Karl, I think you should just follow your passion?
Oh, yeah. Okay. You're talking to the right guy. Okay. So hockey was my passion, right? What did I do? I built a hockey rink from scratch, built it up to impressive levels, still operates today, many 30 years later. I started a hockey tournament about that, let's call it 30 years ago. It still exists today. But let me tell you, a few years into it, I was like over hockey, so much so that I was like, if I never put these skates on again, I'd be a happy man, right? So if it's your passion, it's probably like an artistic, creative pursuit. Think dancing, singing, sport, hockey, painting, photography, baseball, etc. They tend to pay um, not very well. Let's just say that as a general rule. Like the professional football teams get a guy making $40 million per year on a 10-year contract. And then the guy beside him on the O line is making $1 million a year in a 1-year contract, right? So much like real estate, it's a 95-5 kind of pursuit. Um, so what advice would I give you or someone I love who was saying I wanted to follow my passion? I would say do what you're good at. I was very lucky that I loved business. I loved business coaching. I basically went from hockey coaching to business coaching, bingo, bango, bongo, very natural transition. And I managed to carve out a life. But don't think I haven't had my moments where I said, like enough, I'm going to go into finance. I'm going to go into something a little bit different, right? Thankfully, though, I look back and I'm glad I stuck with it. And here we are 22 years later. Um, the even better advice is show me a big problem and I'll show you a big business you can build. Coaches miss out on this, in my opinion, because they're hiding. Remember, there's hiding, there's three levels of coaches. There's the hiders, the wingers, and the installers. You know what I mean? You want to become an installer, but they are hiding. 90% of businesses fail. If you can't go make a couple $100,000 a year in a market with that level of problem, that level of pain, you're honestly, you're just not doing the reach out. You know what I mean? You're just not, you're hiding and assuming of course, you have a legit solution like my operating system that can be installed profitably into any business. Like, let me tell you, Shoots, and you know this, like I could start tomorrow from a standing start and have a $250,000 runway within, I don't know, 60 days, 90 days for sure. And I would bet my life on it. You'd give me a time frame and I could do it. Like I used to have a promo 15 years ago on my website where I said, drop me in any city with a cell phone on Monday, and by Friday, I'll have a live event filled and two coaching clients by Friday, right? So the higher level frame, don't do what you love what you do. Fall in love with the getting the clients, fall in love with filling that event, fall in love with the cold calling, fall in love with the helping people, fall in love with filling your live event and then doing your live event, right? But the problem is people fall in love with doing the live event, but they don't fall in love with filling the live event. Well, the problem with that is you can love the public speaking and love giving back to your community, but in order to get those events with people in it, you're going to have to fall in love with the filling of the event, right? Fall in love with your clients, fall in love with sales, fall in love with marketing, fall in love with problem solving for business owners. It's like Mark Twain. He says the two most important days of your life are the first day is when you're born, but the second day is when you decide why or find out why, right? Well, 90% of businesses fall over unnecessarily. And by the way, installing our operating system can solve and certainly stop that. Maybe that's why you're born, definitely why I was. But I just say the higher level frame, I want to make sure I got this. It's not do what you love, it's love what you do. Imagine if you fell in love with cold calling business owners. If you could fall in love with that, you would have clients falling off a log. But people are worried that they're not enough and they're going to have love taken away from them, and that stops them. Just pick up the phone and if you see it as a cold call, you won't do it. What you need to do is you need to see it as helping people, right? Progress equals happiness. If you make 10 phone calls and speak to 10 people a day, go to the networking event, call up people that have businesses for sale, call up people that are advertising, call up people that are sponsoring the golf and the yacht club and the polo club and the baseball diamond, etc. And your goal was just to help them as opposed to sell them. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like fall in love with that process and you would never be short, right? But that's going to take hunger, right? And hunger is the X factor of all the GOATs, right? The greatest of all time, the Bradys, the Schumachers, the Serena Williams, etc. It's not what they know or how they perform. It's the insatiable appetite to know more do more really in that frame. It's to get better at tennis, at racing the car, at basketball. Just do any homework on Michael Jordan. You will see that he was so in love and addicted to getting better at basketball that, well, that's how he ended up being the greatest of all time. Right. And yes, he lost and he missed shots. There's a whole commercial about it where, the shots that he missed and the games that he lost and the Detroit Pistons kicking his butt early in his career. And that's what made him into Michael Jordan, right? Whereas most people are trying to hide from that, the uncomfort of it. You got to lean into it. Another way of saying that, don't practice to practice, practice to improve. But Chutes, yeah, follow your passion. Quite possibly not the right frame. So that's what I'd say, Chutes.
Okay, so let me ask you this. We all know that you love what you do. What would be the worst job for you think, that you could ever do?
For me, the
Yeah.
worst job.
Yeah, I'd be curious. What is that for you? Besides professional model.
That would not go well, Chutes. That would not go well. You know what? Social media influencer. Oh my gosh. There was a gal who just died today or yesterday. Poor thing. May she rest in peace. And she was actress, but suicides by the dozen in that crowd, sadly. And asked me if I'm surprised and if I predicted that, a long time ago. And the answer is absolutely. Living and dying by likes, shares, comments. There's things you can control and things you can't control. Well, you cannot control likes, shares, and certainly the comments. And the more popular to become, the more ruthless the comments become. Scary, bad idea for somebody who doesn't have an unbelievable amount of self-confidence. And you want to protect your kids from social media. Taking away Instagram and taking away TikTok is not going to solve it. You got to build up. That's what you want to do, is build a foundation for your kids. Like, I watched the movie Manosphere not long ago. Just wild and nuts. Like, it starts off well, right? Where they're giving out advice about hitting the gym and eating well and creating value and making some money and, getting a cool car you enjoy. But then it just spirals into this arrogance and dominating behavior that is just so sideways and so it's you got to watch it. I don't know. But anyways, dominating behavior like that, it's not masculine. It gives masculine energy a really bad name. There's nothing masculine about it. It's just masked as insecurity and pure arrogance. And I got zero time for it. But again, want to make sure you hear it starts off good, right? With hitting the gym and creating value and making good money as a man in the manosphere. Like, I think that's a wonderful idea. The way you make a lot of money is you provide a lot of value for a lot of people. Fantastic. But it's just off the rails. But anyways, anything like, yeah, social media influencer is the answer I'm going to give. And oh my heavens, please, no way.
Okay, well, listen, I just want to circle, but you had said a second ago, the whole I could drop you in any city and you would fill an event from Monday to Friday, have 2 high-end paying clients. Like, walk us through that, because I think a lot of people probably are overthinking how complicated it is, but just walk us through how you would fill an event in 5 days.
Yeah. Okay. I have done this, by the way. I do what 90% refuse to do. I'd pick up the phone and I would call like a hyena in heat. Is that a thing, Chutes? But I'd be calling, like, I wouldn't know my name, my birthday, or what day it was by the end of the day, because I would be exhausted. And really what I do is I just follow my system, frankly, starting, like, we have a program, Live Event Master. I would follow that to a T, but I'd arrange a live event at a venue like the Chamber, or a high-end venue like, the yacht club or the golf course, etc. But I would, get a venue. I'd sharpen my saw before I started chopping the tree, right? So how would I do that? I'd make a list of 100 businesses, new businesses, people advertising. I'd drive around the city and see billboards, sports signage, like the home run fence on the baseball diamond, the boards at the hockey rink. I'd look for cork boards with, laundromats and shopping centers, etc., where businesses are posting their business cards. Why are they doing that? They're trying to grow. They're looking, for a guerrilla type strategy. I'd look for local business awards, and I'd make a list of all those that were nominated. I would know who the winner was, who the top 3 were, who were in the top 10. And when I called the winner, I'd adjust my script to say, you're the winner. And then I would adjust the script for the runner up. And then I would adjust the script for the top 10 finisher. And to the winner, I'm saying, you won that award. So we need you at the event, right? Your business must be awesome. So I'd love to highlight you. I'd also look at businesses for sale, members of the chamber, members of BNI. Why are they joining those things? They're trying to get clients, member of any other networking group. And again, there's all kinds of, private networking type deals all over the place. Again, set your reticular activating system and you'll see it everywhere. Might see who is sponsoring the golf tournament, the yacht club, the polo club, the school newsletter. And lots of this can be done over the phone and some of it needs to be driven. And, you might even need to go walk around a little bit. But at the end of the day, that's what I would do. And then I would call them. And how would I call them? Passive, monotone? No, I would have a high level of energy and I'd pitch them like my life depends on it. But I'd also pitch them like I care and genuinely want them to come and that I think I'll really be able to help them, if they're in the room. But if they're not in the room, I'm not going to be able to. So I'd be super convincing. Whether they pay me or not, I'm going to help them. That's the frame. Somebody has to deliver the message and God chose me. So guess what? Let's do this thing. I'm going to show up. If they don't come, they don't agree. I feel like I'm letting them down, right? Not that they're letting me down. Sounds kind of, it's a very different approach, very different attitude. I show up to that call with a high level of energy and an expectation and a desire to convince them because I know if they come into the room, I mean, I did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these events, the feedback forums I've got, you know what I mean? Like I know the result and I know what people say. They're like, this was awesome. And remember, if you can save a suicide, you can get this person motivated to come, right? But you got to approach it in that manner. You just got to get over yourself. This is an outward thing, not an inward thing. This isn't about you. This is about them and expect to get told to buzz off and to F off and all that stuff. What do? You keep going. It's a high level of self-esteem, right? And then I'd call the chamber salespeople, local advertising salespeople, think newspaper, magazine, radio, billboard, etc. The leader of BNI, the private networking chapter. And I would, I'd look to be formative. I'd convince them that they should be telling their people about it. Are they going to? Probably not. But if I get an extra 1 or 2, I just need 10 people, right? And I'll be able to make my 2 sales comfortably. So yeah, I'm calling them because they've got a list of business owners. And who do you think I should call? Can you think of anybody? And I'd be amazed if I spoke to 30 people, I would get 10 committed. And by the way, I would assume 50% show rate. So maybe I need to make 60 calls. What I wouldn't do is stay in my comfort zone and play it safe, right? I'd set myself up for no's and FU's and abusive emails and maybe a death threat or 2 if I did a really, really, really good job, right? And I'd show up on Monday with courage, with determination, with intestinal fortitude, intensity, and a higher level of thinking than most people approach it with, right? I would not try. It's like the old Yoda thing. I wouldn't try. I would do. But I wouldn't do my best. I would do what it takes as a frame. Monday at 8 p.m. when I was done dialing for like 10 hours straight without lunch, I'd be so exhausted. I'd just be, I would lay down on my pillow and go to sleep immediately. And what would I do on, that's Monday. On Tuesday morning, I get back up and I do it all again. And by the way, at the end of the day, I would be exhausted and totally over it, but I would feel great because progress equals happiness. And I would have done some, you know what I mean? I'd be doing what I don't think others would do. And again, that's, you know what I mean? Progress, you end the podcast every week, right? Progress equals happiness. I guarantee at the end of Monday, I would feel like I made some progress and I would do the exact same thing on Tuesday. I wouldn't do my best. I do what it takes. Anyway, Chutes, that's a little, hope that doesn't sound grandiose, by the way, not meant to be. Probably sounds a bit the opposite. What I would do, I just go to the trenches, man. I do what I needed to do. So that's my answer.
Story time with Road Dog here for a second. Because this has got me thinking, Chutes, like how much conviction and belief do you have in what you're doing, right? Like if you're putting on, like you going in and saying, I'm going to fill that room for a Friday presentation, because you know what it can deliver. And I'll never forget it. I've told this story probably at least 300 times on this podcast. But the very first time you and I did our first live event, you sent over the presentation to me, and I was just like, "Are you kidding me right now? Like, that's it? That's it? Like,
Yeah.
that's way too simplistic." And all you
Yeah.
said was, "Just watch." Because you've done it before, you believed in it, and you just knew it would work. And guess what? It did. And that's the
Yeah.
part where I think a lot of people, the reason you're not picking up the phone, the reason that you're not filling the room do you really believe that you can make a difference, that this presentation is going to wow them and open their eyes, no matter how simplistic at times it may feel? Just because they say they're doing something doesn't mean they're actually doing it. So, anyways,
Yeah.
just want to share that.
It's if I could just answer that for everybody, you don't want to deliver level 3, level 5 content to people that are at level 1 or level 2. Just goes over their head and they go, yeah, it works for you. It works for Road Dog. You guys have all this experience. You go to the basics. Don't do you are not the audience, right? The audience is in the sandbox, and that's okay, by the way. So you got to meet them there.
Now, my question for you following up here is how would you go ahead and get a list of new businesses?
Hmm. Not sure. Well, my dad had an advertising business for years. And what he used to do is he would go into a new city. And when you have last year, this is Yellow Pages days, folks, right? But he would have in a small, he's not going to Vancouver or Toronto or LA or New York. He's going to a small town with 20,000 people. And he had last year's Yellow Pages and this year's Yellow Pages. And he would go through and see the difference. And then he would drive around the city to the main streets, and he could just kind of tell when a business looked, if the signage looked brand new, well, he could assume that was a new business. But at the end of the day, he literally, that was his business for years and years and years. Should you do that? Probably. The most effective use of your time. Possibly. It might be fantastic use of your time. Does Yellow Pages still exist? I don't even know. But anyways, I'd call City Hall and ask for business license, like there to be a business license office. And I would ask them for business registry lists, city website, look for public meetings, minutes, city council agendas, economic development updates, check the Chamber of Commerce, local business directory or member newsletters. For new additions to the list. I would call the gal that works at the chamber. I would call the guy that's running, these types of things and say, hey, I'm just wondering if I could get a list of new businesses. I'm wondering who's new and how I would find, just ask the question, right? Local newspaper, online and offline. There's going to be an open for business spotlight and local announcements. I'd be looking through that. And again, if this sounds like hard work, it is but that's what you do, right? Let me tell you, a new business owner, you're going to be able to sell at a higher level than somebody who's been around for 15 years. That's not to say they're better or worse, but somebody who's new to business, they might not have, been invited to these types of events, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so, social media, there's got to be Facebook groups and local Instagram pages where people talk about new shops, local business improvement info. I don't know, if I had a new business, I would have a grand opening. Well, I'd be searching grand opening. And I think Chutes, AI will be able to help you do this at a level. I would literally ask AI, how do I do it? I'm going to this town of 50,000 people, and I'm wondering if you can tell me where to find new businesses, and it would be able to direct you. And by the way, is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not. Remember, AI is a yes man, but I would say it'd be easier today than ever. But that's some of the steps, and I would take the time to do it because I can tell you that my dad sold advertising. I can tell you that new businesses bought at 5 to 20x the rate of the businesses that have been around forever. But you call them all. So anyway, Chutes, that's what I would say about.
All right, Shoots. Well, I know we are running pretty late here today. Did you want to do a moment of Zen, or did you want to do a power-packed
Yeah.
punch? Trying to find another P here on the next podcast. What are we thinking here? Do you got?
No, let's go Zen.
All right.
No, let's go Zen. Not that I have
Zen it up, buds.
Yeah. So here's something I read this morning. The average person checks their phone 200 times a day, right? So multiply that by 7, rhymes with 1,400 a week. a month. That's well over 5,600 a month. I'll tell you, I'm going to ask, I'll just let you decide if that is good or bad use of your time. And when I say time, I'm not talking about building a business. I'm talking about living a life. So yeah, the other day, like that's, I don't know, I read 200 times a day and I was like, oh my gosh, like, and of course now I'm kind of like, loosely counting in my head where I'm at. And I'm no better than anybody. Let me tell you, man, that phone and I have a very love-hate relationship. It's fantastic in ways, but if I could throw the thing in the lake and never look at it again, I would probably take that option, but that's not an option. Um, anyway, so I don't know. That's Zen. But I also tell you this, when someone is told they're dying, they don't run around and tell everyone they know that they love them. And that might be what you possibly expect, right? What do? They spend time in silence. They watch the sunset. They smell. They don't just look at the flowers and enjoy the flowers. They can smell the flowers all of a sudden. They look up into the sky, but they enjoy the colors of the sky, the beauty of the clouds. They end up walking in peace. They go for walks. And a lot of the time what they do is they find themselves walking on their own by themselves in total peace. And why do I say that? First, I don't really know, but I can tell you that opening your phone 200 times a day, 1,400 times a week is the absolute polar opposite of that. If you have somebody close to you that has passed away, which no doubt you do, like that's the kind of thing that is going on. So what would I encourage you to do is to go outside, go for a walk, maybe with yourself and maybe not. Connection is also very powerful, but connection like that with yourself is also powerful. You're included in that. And maybe smell the flowers and look up into the clouds, but actually enjoy it instead of thinking, in a word, it's be present, right? As opposed to what's next. Anyway, Chutes, that's all I got for Zen, bud. That's all I
Chutes,
got for Zen.
you're so good. In a word, be present. 2 words. I love it. All right, folks. Hey, next week we're gonna have a whole new segment, and it's gonna be about rhyming. And to put it like Karl, the guy hosting it rhymes with Karl. So there you go. How about that? I love you talking about rhyming. It's so good. All right, folks, here's the deal. Okay, first off, thanks for hanging with us on a whole amazing episode here. The filling your event within a week. If you are one of those struggling coaches we talked about earlier, go back, re-listen to that, do that this week. Get an event, go get 2 clients. But here's the deal. If you want more of this every single day, Karl sends out that daily email packed with coaching strategies, client wins, the stuff that's actually moving the needle right now. Just head over to focus.com, do yourself the favor and get on the inside. It is where the real work happens. And hey, if this episode helped you, do us a solid, share it with another coach who needs to hear it. Leave us a review if you're feeling generous. We're on a mission to impact as many coaches as possible, and you sharing the show makes that happen. That is it for another week, folks. We will see you on the next episode. And remember, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.